So what causes dissatisfaction? Where do we see roadblocks in terms of digitisation for operations? A very siloed view is very common. So having a disconnect between planning and execution. So I've been fortunate enough to be on both sides, and each party blames the other for everything that goes wrong in an operation. And generally speaking, these things aren't, these behaviours never get malicious, but there always creates tension. Two different departments. Funnily enough, you have KPIs that are generally different, even though they should be the same. But it's very common to see KPIs that are not quite aligned, and you get this silo effect where two departments that are key to execute a mine plan, to plan and to execute a mine plan, can disagree. And that happens usually from lack of communication or lack of oversight. And we'll go into further detail how digitisation can help communication between departments improve and make information and planning more transparent. Inefficient communication, as I just discussed, in collaboration, another big issue that causes a siloing effect. In any mine, you'll find things are generally chaotic, not in a scary sort of sense, but it's a very fast paced, and it's a fast pace because we're generally bound by KPIs and are pushing for KPIs and to manage safety at every breathing moment of the day. So things come at you fast in mining operations, and generally that's the roadblock to good communication. Everyone gets busy doing what they need to do to make a mine function. And in amongst that chaos, communication will usually be the first casualty of that. So digitization, again, getting back to what what digitization can do is just be able to break down by integrating systems together, integrating departments together, breaks down those communication barriers that we would otherwise see. Time-consuming manual process using spreadsheets and paper, which is probably closest to my heart. We went through this paradigm shift with wave one onto wave two, where we computerized, a lot of what we did in mining, and as we get to sort of wave two and three, where we're starting to use programs that are a lot more sophisticated, we're still in a transition, I find, broadly speaking, in the industry. Obviously, some operations are further forward than others, but still having to do a lot of manual processes. And the technology is clearly out there now that allows us to get away from people doing the repetitive tasks day in, day out, having to sit down, say, the first hour of the day and create a production report by drawing information from handwritten physical sheets from operators, and this still does happen. So there's a lot of time-consuming work, and it's wasted work for people when it can be digitized. And if we can go to someone and say that I'm going to take out 3 hours of administrative burden of your day and automate that process, well, it's not to say that that person doesn't have a job. It's to say, well, your job can now be more value add to yourself, to the business. You can work on things that are more enjoyable. Not many people like crunching numbers day in, day out. Maybe accountants do, potentially, but personally, I don't. So to get away from those repetitive tasks is a benefit to any operation, and it allows people to do more strategic based work, for argument's sake, allow people to do continuous improvement work that can make mines more productive, reduce cost, can make them safer. Inefficient use of resources. So this is what I found directly in the operations space. This is where digitisation helped our operation the most. Is you have a set amount of resources at any mine. The three probably best examples there are your headings, your active work areas, your equipment, all of the machines you use underground, mobile and fixed based equipment, so trucks, loaders, crushers, hoisting systems, and then you've got manpower. So and the skill sets of the manpower, their training and their capabilities. So when you can utilize these three things well, again, that's where you become more productive with what you've currently got. Some of the traps you can fall into with operations is believing that, especially around people and equipment, is I need more people, I need more equipment. Well, it makes more sense to look at what you've got, benchmark yourself, and understand, well, with this many pieces of equipment and this many people, how much do I actually reasonably think I can get done? And by doing that, you can set a benchmark and be able to work towards a goal that's realistic and practical, and actually get more out of the resources that you have. Gut-based decision making versus data-driven decision making. You'll find, especially I'd say in the shift planning space, where time is the biggest enemy of planning a good shift and building a good shift. Your shift basically resets every 12 hours in most operations. Some are 8 hours, but generally speaking, every 12 hours. And you've got this window of 1 hour of the day where a lot of information comes at you. And if that's not done in a very regimented, organized fashion, it can get very overwhelming. So you've got this period during the day over a shift change between one shift leaving and one shift coming on to make decisions based on how do I build the best shift for the upcoming 12 hours. Now, if there isn't a very regimented planning process in place, a system that allows us to allocate resources based on priorities of headings, what equipment's available, what people we have and what skills they have. Sometimes that hour of the day can get fairly chaotic again, use that word chaos, and people can start making gut-based decisions. So, a good example of that is, generally the KPI that gets talked about the most is how much volume we move, how many tons do we move from point A to point B, from the mine to the mill, for argument's sake. And when things get a bit chaotic, people generally go back to, well, that's sort of the ultimate output and KPI for my 12-hour shift or 24-hour period. So what tends to happen is if gut-based decisions will always generally revert to a tons focus, because that's the KPI that pays businesses make money from, essentially moving metal from point A to point B. And what that will cause is just because you can meet a KPI of tons on one day doesn't actually mean that the shift was successful. There's usually a raft of KPIs that have to be met, and what I have seen is if we have a successful day moving tons for the 24 hours, well, what did fall off? Not always things fall off, but did we not work a priority heading, for argument's sake? Did we not do mine rehab, for argument's sake, that had to be done so the following 24 hours could have a good shift? So digitization gets away from these gut-based decisions and moves more to data-driven decisions. So we can make decisions based on what does the mine schedule say, what are our resources at hand, and what makes most sense for the day. Not having real-time view on status, and we'll go through a lot of this in the short interval control space. The underground environment especially, open pit has the advantage of having a very, you can see what's going on, to put it quite simply, whereas underground it's not quite as easy to see 50, 60 operators scattered underground under 400 meters of overburden of rock. So it's challenging. So to have real-time view on what happens in an operation at any given time is one of the biggest enablers for the people that make those decisions to make right decisions. And reactive approach, I think that ties in very much to the real-time view on the status of the mine. So if we see something going awry, if we see things change during the day from what the plan was to what the what's actually happening. We can make decisions, which is essentially short interval control. We can make decisions throughout the day to get production or a plan or development back on track to where it needs to be as things happen.